Oh, you can see that one.
All right, planning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are opened. Go for it.
Thank you, LTV. Welcome to the December 3rd East Hampton Town Planning Board meeting. I'm Jennifer Folks, I'm the vice chair, and unfortunately our chair is unable to be with us this evening, so I'm stepping in. We have kind of a packed meeting. We have a public hearing, 6 items on for work session, 5 for the regular meeting, a board of review, and then an adjournment. So we'll start with the public hearing. Would you like to read that one, Ava?
Yes.
Thanks.
Is proper notice given?
Have we? Yes.
Properly noticed, yeah.
Great.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Does Brian start? Or do we read the notice first? Okay.
Okay, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board on December 3rd, 2025 at 6:30 PM. The application is Lands and Marina Site Plan Special Permit. Site location is 108,453 square feet, 2.49 acres, located at 386 Westlake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-12-1-1, 2, 14, and 15. The description is the application is to construct a floating dock extension to accommodate an additional 26 vessels, a 960 square foot, 2-story bathhouse office with attached decking, dumpster enclosure, concrete pad with a walk-in freezer, additional parking, replace existing fencing and install a new sanitary system on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and surface waters. Zoning district is Resort RS and is within the Harbor Protection Overlay District. This is an unlisted action of SECRA with a negative declaration issued on September 10th, 2025.
Thanks, Ava. Brian, would you like to give us a quick recap?
Sure.
Thank you.
Acting Chair. As you know, this application is an improved property. It's improved right now with a single-family residence. And the marina consisting of about 16 slips altogether. The application involves wharfing out farther, building a T-shaped floating dock extension that will require an additional lease area from the town board if it does gain final site plan approval. The application has been before the zoning board of appeals and has received a natural resources special permit for the improvements under consideration by the planning board tonight. This was last heard by the planning board in September, where the planning board issued a negative declaration. The upland improvements include the bathhouse, which includes offices and bathrooms as described in the notice. Both the existing residence and the proposed bathhouse are proposed to be tied into a new sanitary system located in the southwest corner of the property. Scenic easement is proposed in the southern portion of the property along the intact portion of the salt marsh, hatched in red as shown on the site plan. And parking is a combination of gravel and grass parking area, predominantly in the northern portion of the property. Drainage is proposed beneath the parking area, and that would be subject to approval by the town engineer. And I think that's the overview, unless the board members have any questions.
Thank you. No, I think we're good. Is there anyone here in the room who would like to speak on the Lands and Marina Site Plan application? No. Matt, do we have anyone on the phone?
Please stand by.
Thank you.
And this is Matt Chapman calling in from LTV, making sure all lines are open and clear, in which they are, and you have 0 additional callers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is the Surf Club Beach Access Railing Site Plan. Is the applicant here? Brian, that is you from the planning department, and Bruce, that is you for the planning board.
Good evening, board members. Brian Frank, on behalf of the planning department. So this is an application at the Surf Club in Montauk. This is a property that the planning board has seen semi-regularly over the last couple of years for generally minor alterations to the individual units that make up the complex. And this application is for a seasonal handrailing proposing to extend from the southern limit of the walkway that provides access to the beach to a distance, probably needs to be clarified a little bit, whether it's 32 feet or 50 feet over what's, it's a brand name, but Mobility Mat. This brand is a Moby Mat, which is a fabricated surface used at a lot of beaches, including public beaches, to provide a bit of a firmer surface for walking than a typical beach, cobble beach or sand beach does. And the planning department is sensitive to the concept of providing improved access to people with limited mobility. Beaches are one of the town's most prized resources and like to see it accessible to everybody. But there are some practical limitations, I think, from this application. And I think this initial discussion tonight is the best place to discuss what those limitations are and where the application should go from here. As the board members probably know, I've been working on waterfront construction for the town for a pretty long time. I'm the unofficial, at this point it's probably official, LWRP coordinator, and I'm not familiar with a project like this either in town jurisdiction or beyond in other coastal areas. So this might be a bit of a first for a first of its kind coming before the board. This is, the structure itself is relatively innocuous. You're talking about two wooden handrails on either side of the Moby Mat made out of Ipe hardwood. There are architectural plans that show it extending 32 feet south of an existing walkway that runs through the middle of the property. You can see it on the aerial. The survey shows it running a distance of 50 feet, which is kind of the full length of the Moby Mat, and probably the seaward edge of that Moby Mat is largely buried in the sand right now, and that might contribute to some of the discrepancies between the plans a little bit. Even though the structures are relatively innocuous, we should recognize that this is a bit of a volatile area. This is a velocity flood zone. It's seaward of the state designated coastal erosion hazard area. It's an area that has been prone to severe erosion. It's been well documented. Part of the reason the beach looks so great in this photo right now is that this area was recently, finally, the recipient of the long-awaited FIMP or FEMA, whichever acronym you want to use for the Fire Island of Montauk formulation, where this is now a designated feeder beach as established by the Army Corps of Engineers, and about 460,000 cubic yards of sand was pumped onto this beach from an offshore borrow site along the entire downtown area. But prior to that, if you're familiar with this area, you know that as almost in a little bit of desperation, a sandbag revetment was installed seaward of all of these buildings in around 2015 as an interim measure, really to protect these buildings until the formulation plan could be completed and implemented and actually built. And those sandbags still exist beneath this sand in front of all of these properties and are almost certainly located right below where the project is. There may be restrictions associated with that. In an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers that property owners were required to offer to not damage the sandbags by installing structures directly above them, and that's one of the gray areas that need to be clarified. The town will continue to do that. I've inquired with the town attorney's office and the Natural Resources Department that we're a little bit more on point for that interim project than my department was at the time, and maybe between ourselves and the applicant, we can get that established. So the width, elevation, and slope of this beach is going to continue to change over time. Beaches are not really ADA compliant because they're soft surfaces. The slope is dynamic. It's not fixed. It really doesn't meet the standards of the Americans with Disability Act. And that's why I don't think it's accurate to describe this as an ADA hand railing. It is something that in theory could improve access for people with limited mobilities, but may not be the best option. This structure is going to end abruptly at the end of either the Moby map or shortly before that, in which case somebody with a physical limitation is kind of on their own. It extends from a walkway that is level, but also lacks handrails. So it's a sensitive topic. Again, I'm sensitive to it because, again, we'd like to see our resources utilized by the community to the fullest extent possible with as few limitations as possible. On a personal note, I've been involved in a lot of lift assists over the last 10 years as a firefighter, and even more transports to the hospital for slip and fall victims as an EMT. So I'm aware of people's sensitivity to their limited mobility under a lot of circumstances. It's a sensitive subject for a lot of people. I think alternatives that need to be explored a little bit more fully here are regrading under the Moby mat. Planning department doesn't mind being on record as saying that lifting the Moby mat up and grading the sand underneath it to provide a more gentle slope would be something that the planning department would not object to. There are also walkers that are specifically made to be used on the beach, large tires, low air pressure, more structural support that would probably provide more utility than just ending at even, let's say, 50 feet south of where the walkway is now. And those probably need to be explored a little bit more fully. Maybe when the applicant speaks, they can address the population that this is intended to serve, the number of patrons at the residents at the Surf Club at Montauk that this is intended to improve access for. But in going forward, there are a number of considerations that the planning board should evaluate, and those are kind of listed in the questions at the end there. In particular, the depth of those sandbags. Those sandbags are closest to the surface the farther north you get. So it's unclear exactly how far below the sand surface they are currently. The depth of penetration of the posts for the handrails is proposed to be about 4.5 feet, 5 feet. And it is important to not do anything that affects the integrity of those sandbags. This feeder beach is supposed to be periodically renourished by the Corps of Engineers in supplemental projects. But in those windows in between, we certainly hope it doesn't come down to a time when those sandbags become the only protection for the structures behind them. But if that's the case, it would be unwise to do anything that would compromise their structural integrity. It is in the coastal erosion hazard area zone. I don't know what the current DEC policy is on seasonal structures needing permits. I believe this would need a permit from the DEC. An application has been made to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a natural resources special permit. Comments have been solicited by the fire marshal. I've discussed it informally with the fire marshal, and even though you haven't gotten those comments for this meeting, I wouldn't expect a lot of detail to come from the fire marshal because this isn't a structure or activity that's really subject per se to the fire code or the building code. So I'm not sure that you're going to get, well, I don't want to speak for the fire marshal, but because of the limited utility of this structure and its seasonality, I'm not sure how much detail you're going to get from those comments. I think at this time, I'd just like to see if the board members have any questions that I can answer. I do have the plans, which are a little bit more generic, but maybe the survey is the best. If you want to see the plans, I'll bring them up. I included a couple of recent photos in my memorandum, one looking south across, towards the ocean from the Moby map, and one from near the end of the map, looking north, just to provide context as to what those existing conditions are. You can see that there's dune fencing on either side of the map, and the dune was planted with beach grasses are the specs of the feeder beach project, and the handrail would be between those fencing on either side of the map as shown in the survey.
Thank you, Brian.
Lori Wiltshire for Land Planning Services. So we were approached by the president of the board of the Surf Club. There are 92 units here, and we have an aging population, and people are having difficulty accessing the beach. The slope getting down to the beach is the problem. It's not the walkways on the property in general. It's that soft surface. Moby mats are not they are flexible. It's not very, they help, but they're not perfect. A railing is one way to, whether you're on the right or the left side, climbing up, you can hold it, going down, you can hold it. To have wheelchairs or to have walkers, so these are 1-bedroom units. There's the likelihood of someone having a caretaker is not very good. So if you're lining up wheelchairs and walkers to take down to the bottom of the Moby mat, there's no one to bring them back up. And then you're going to need a whole bunch of them. So you're going to need a little parking lot for wheelchairs and walkers, which makes no sense whatsoever. This seems to be the simplest solution. I can hear that there are some engineering questions that have got to be answered, mainly about these sandbags. Either Brian, myself, or Walbridge have access to the easement that was put forth when the Army Corps put the sandbags in, but we'll get our hands on that. We'll figure out what the circumstances are, be in touch with the right professionals at that organization, and figure out how we might implement 4.5 feet of in-depth sand penetration with these standards for the fencing. And that we'll have to get back to you on once we've seen the easement.
Okay, thank you so much,
Can I
Lori.
ask one question of Lori?
Sure.
Yeah, just have you explored the non-structural alternatives as outlined by,
So the non-structural alternatives were the wheelchairs or the walkers.
or the grading underneath the,
Well, the grading underneath will help some, but you're still always going to have a slope going down onto the beach. There's no way around it. It's a man-made dune with sandbags underneath it. So it's not going to be flattened out just because you regrade the Moby mat.
thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian, thanks, Lori. I think we really need some information on the sandbags depth from top of sand to top of sandbags, and if this is even feasible or not, because without that information, I think this is kind of a mute discussion. I think it'd be great if you could see if there's another alternative. I understand that it's a good idea for the handrails. They're kind of, not that offensive, but I think, as Brian said, this is probably the only beach access that has it on the South Fork, it sounds like.
Go ahead, sure.
Okay, so, yeah, I think we need some more information, for sure.
We've been approached by other condominiums with the same requests. Nothing's come before you yet, but it's the same problem, aging populations trying to get to the beach at the condominium where they live. What's the other thing you just said that I wanted to address? Shoot. You'll get the sandbag info.
I do have a question for you while you're still up here. What's the plan at the end of the Moby mat? So,
Oh, that was the other thing.
yeah.
These are also seasonal. They will be removed.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
But at the end of the Moby mat, the guest or the owner will still have to traverse a great deal of sand.
Sure, but it's the slope that's the issue. it's not the sand that's the issue. It's the slope of getting down to the beach.
And what, do we know, Brian, what the elevation change is
Do
there?
we have any info on the slope change? I know it varies,
Well,
but
and that's why spot elevations weren't requested. So no, we don't have any information about the elevation change. North
The top,
end of the
yeah.
map or the south end. But providing that information would really just be a snapshot.
Right,
And it will
it's gonna
change over
change,
time.
yeah.
Of course.
And that's why I didn't think to request that.
Right. And we can look at it as right now, but
Yeah.
it will definitely change, even with the Moby map.
Does anyone else? on the
So
board?
these would go in on Memorial Day weekend and come out on Labor Day weekend?
I don't think we have a schedule yet, but yes, they will be seasonal for the summer population.
Laura, I just have a quick question. Since it is seasonal, is there any other alternative other than the Moby mat to have more of a structural piece that could be installed and
More like a
removed?
wooden deck, a
I'm thinking
walkway.
of like off Marine Boulevard, how those private paths are wooden, like.
Wooden walkways
Yeah,
raised
it would
above.
still be a structure, and I'm sure it would obviously have to go through process, but it would be, and I don't know, storage-wise, obviously, that would be another topic, but
I can
just
ask them.
another alternative.
I mean, I think that's, well, with the sandbags, maybe not a bad suggestion. I can certainly bring it up, but I think they're still going to need the handrail.
Yes,
Because
but it
it's
would,
still
but it
got the
could,
slope.
right, it would still have to probably, obviously be embedded somehow, but maybe not as great, I don't know, because we don't know what the,
Yeah.
how deep the handrails would have to be from the Moby mat or versus a.
So the nice thing about the
structure.
Moby mat is you can just roll it up and take it away
Yeah,
for the
no,
winter.
I know.
And then the decking's a little more complicated.
Right,
We're gonna
you need more
store it.
storage space, right.
But I'll ask.
Okay. Understood.
It's a tough decision. I mean, you don't want to add structures to the beach. It takes away from the natural beauty of the beach. I mean, we've done enough to that beach necessarily, and I understand, I want to be sensitive to the people who want to access the beach that have mobility problems. So I think, like Bruce, I think we just need more information, and I'm going to delay my decision as to whether I like the idea or not.
Excellent. I too have the same questions about the depth to the sandbags. And I think the walkers would be a viable alternative. I actually took the liberty of looking them up online, and they're about $1,300 each for a personal walker, which is, I'm assuming, much less than, building a railing and reinstalling it and storing, every single year. And I do worry a little bit about this year, it may be okay to go down 5 feet and not hit the sandbags, but next year it may be a problem that pops up again. So I think with all that said, we need more information. And I guess we can move on to our questions. Anybody have anything else? Does the board want to encourage the exploration of non-structural alternatives such as grading beneath the Moby mat or the use of walkers or wheelchairs specifically designed for beach use? I think that's a yes. Should the applicant reconcile the length of the handrail shown on the survey and the architectural plans? Yes. Should the applicant reconcile, same thing. Should the applicant be required to submit any easement or agreement with the town or Army Corps of Engineer related to the protection of the subsurface geotextile revetment beneath the proposed handrail?
yeah.
I think yes, yeah. Does the board want to waive the site plan elements listed in this evaluation? I think we don't have enough information yet for that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you, Lori. Thank you. Next up, McDonald Griffin subwaiver wrap up. Chris, this is yours for the planning department, and it is my application. Thanks, Brian. Good to go.
Should be a quick wrap up. This is for the McDonald Griffin sub-waiver application at 981 Springs Fireplace Road, shown here. The sub-waiver map. The site is zoned B residence. It's 1.25 acres and it's partially cleared as shown on this map here, which conforms with the town code. The application is to divide the existing property into two parcels. Parcel 1 proposes 28,106 square feet with frontage along Springs Fireplace Road and a scenic and conservation easement along the street. Parcel 2, the flag lot is proposed as 20,002 square feet. And the property is currently improved as a single family residence. And the board has agreed that the shed along the driveway would be removed as a condition of approval. A public hearing was held on November 19th of this year. No comments were received from the public. Both the fire marshal and town consulting engineer signed off on the approval, signed off on the application, and in conclusion provided that the board agrees the application is ready for approval.
Thanks, Chris. Is the applicant here? Here you are.
Good evening, Shannon McCaffrey, Dewey's Planning. First, I'd like to thank the board and the planning department for their time on this application. And in reviewing the memo, I just wanted to reiterate the condition of approval that we talked at the October 8th meeting about the common driveway being installed as a condition of CL Lot 2. So that's all I have to add.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Chris. Anybody have any comments? Does the planning board agree the application is ready for approval?
Yes.
Yes. Okey-dokey. Next up is Gardner's Marina site plan modification. Chris, this is yours again. Is the applicant here? No? Is the applicant here for Gardner's?
Drew Bennett's right there.
Drew's here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was staring right. I thought he was leaving and I was like, wait. All right, the applicant is here. Chris, whenever you're ready.
Great. Thank you, Jen. This is the Gardner's Marina site plan modification evaluation at 35 3 Mile Creek Road in Springs. And this is the board's first review of this application. Just to give some context on the site, the lot is approximately 2.7 acres, excluding wetlands, and it decreased approximately 4,150 square feet with the original approval, which enlarged the marina basin. The property is partially cleared and contains expansive tidal wetlands, which are regulated by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Most of the wetlands are within a coastal area resources system zone, which prohibits most federal expenditures that would encourage development in the area. Property is also within several areas of environmental consideration, including the Harbor Protection Overlay District, HPOD, state and local significant coastal fish and wildlife habitat, town coastal erosion overlay zones 2 and 4, the Bay littoral zones, and the North Bay Environment Critical Environmental Area. To the south is 3 Mile Marina, and to the north is a town-owned lot purchased through the Community Preservation Fund. All the lots across the street to the east are residentially zoned. So just to go over the application itself, I'm going to zoom in on the site plan here. So the modification application has been made to alter the facade decking and lower the first floor elevation by 1.5 feet for the proposed 2,392 square foot two-story clubhouse building, previously approved in November 15, 2023. This would involve converting the proposed basement into a crawl space, and other modifications proposed are to relocate 4 accessible parking spaces, 2 line of walkways, 2 outdoor showers, and some HVAC equipment. 2 modifications from the approved plan are existing changes. The boardwalk to the east and north of the existing boat slips was constructed slightly wider than the approved width that's shown in blue on this plan. And the parking area is proposed to remain as gravel, whereas the original approval was for asphalt to be paved in this area. So just going over the issues for environmental review, it's a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA in chapter 128 of the town code, and is not subject to additional review pursuant to SECRA. The project description was very detailed, but it's just missing the width, the difference in the approved and the built width of that boardwalk. The applicant provided some square footages, but we just want to have the applicant confirm. It appears it was less than a foot, so it doesn't appear very substantial. Regarding the finished elevation of the bulkhead, the approved site plan detailed that it would be raised 1.5 feet over the existing elevation. It appears that it was built to 6.71 feet, and the applicant should confirm whether that was accurate. The original approval conditioned that it not be raised more than 7.5 feet, so it appears to be compliant. And that would be reviewed prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The next couple of issues, we have some small corrections to make from the planning department. For lot area, the survey and site plan submitted appear to indicate some inaccurate lot areas. However, to correct our report, since this is a modification to close out a previous site plan approval, we find it sufficient that the applicant used the lot area of approximately 2.8 acres from before the marina basin was enlarged. They're still closing out that previous approval. So we note the submitted survey did not exclude the wetlands from the lot area, but the site plan did include accurate figures, including the proposed lot area of approximately 2.7 acres. And this is what should reflect the existing conditions and should be sufficient for our analysis. An as-built survey with the corrected updated lot area would be required prior to a CO being issued. And so to confirm, the lot area should not need revisions, and the applicant has also provided a certified survey since this report was published. Regarding coverage, the proposed building and lot coverages both substantially comply with the town code, but the submitted plan also detailed that the coverage of adjacent areas to tidal wetlands is proposed to decrease approximately 7,922 square feet. The applicant should explain how this area is being decreased with this modification request, and the tidal wetland adjacent area is defined by the DEC, and it's more only applicable to their review, but we just want to confirm that the information on the submitted plan is accurate. Regarding setbacks to the tidal wetlands, it appears that all the work is within 150 feet of tidal wetlands, so this modification will also require modification from the previous zoning board approval for the NRSP. So the applicant can make an application to the ZBA at this time, as well as, since these wetlands are regulated by the DEC, a modification from the previously issued Article 25 tidal wetland permit should be obtained from the DEC or a letter of non-jurisdiction. Regarding clearing, the site plan details that there's 365 square feet of revegetation proposed, but upon further review, it appears that this work was connected to the original site plan review and should not be subject to this review. Regarding the survey submitted, a revised version has since been provided with the existing and proposed clearing, which should not require further revision at this time. This will be confirmed at the next review. For the flood zone, it was in fact labeled on the site plan, and there should be no further issues regarding flood zones. Next was exterior lighting. It appears there's no new lighting proposed. Applicant should confirm if any new is proposed, and they should just provide specification sheets on those fixtures. Upon reviewing the lighting plan that was previously approved back in 2023, the entrance sign by the driveway included a light fixture with a color temperature above 3,000 Kelvin, so that didn't comply with the town code. So I'll ask the applicant to swap that out with a compliant fixture. And I believe that some details were submitted this week that we will review for the next review. Next is noise, and that's for the HVAC equipment that's proposed along the street. Applicant should provide specification sheets with sound data for the equipment, or some other method to show compliance with town code noise standards, and also just label the setback for this equipment to make sure that those standards are met. And then just to briefly go over the submission requirements from the town code, just given some of the corrections we have here, the submission items that the planning department thinks should be provided are to indicate the existing electrical service lines, dimensions for the proposed accessible parking spaces and their access aisles, and specification sheets for newly proposed lighting. But for the items to waive, the setbacks for the clubhouse building should not be necessary since there's a 25-foot setback line shown along the plan here, which is sufficient. Lot area revisions should not be required for the reasons mentioned. And then additional topography should not be required. The topography lines along the clubhouse were not labeled, but there's plenty of spot elevations there to show the grading there. Lastly, the layout of existing and proposed parking area, including dimensional spaces and aisles for the gravel parking lot, we recommend waiving that requirement since it's not required in the original approval and there's no changes to the dimensions of the parking area. So we find it sufficient if only the dimensions are provided for the accessible spaces. Running to fire marshal comments, they signed off for firefighting purposes, but just noted that the accessible spaces are not ADA compliant and should instead provide firm slip-resistant surfaces instead of gravel. The engineer, town consulting engineer, had no objections to the proposal, and the planning department notes that the ADA spaces should just be indicated with asphalt. Would probably be the most simple fix. The other review that this project is required to undergo is from the DEC to modify or get a letter of non-jurisdiction. The Zoning Board of Appeals, as mentioned, as well as the Architectural Review Board. So in conclusion, the application is incomplete pending the revision of the issues mentioned. Applicant should confirm the difference in the improved and modified width of the boardwalk and the top bulkhead elevation. The applicant should apply to the ZBA at this time and should provide details on the coverage of areas adjacent to tidal wetlands. The board should determine whether they agree. Details should be provided for compliance with general lighting and noise standards of the town code. Applicant should provide information for the missing required submission items, and the board should review the list of required items to determine whether they agree with the planning department's recommendation to waive the requirement for striped parking and drive aisle dimensions, and the corrections to not require revised lot area setbacks or topography lines near the clubhouse.
Thanks, Chris. Drew, would you like to speak?
My name is Drew Bennett. I'm a consulting engineer. I'm here on behalf of the owner. Mark Mendelman, one of the owners, is here with us this evening. Thank you very much, Chris, for a very thorough review and your other staff that assisted you. So I'll give you my best elevator pitch of what we're actually asking for. So as Chris pointed out, we have approval from the board to do alterations and restoration of the marina, and that was done back in 2022. In December 2023, they started work on the marine basin itself and the bulkhead work. And this is a winter construction activity because they keep the marina operating during the summer. So we have a winter window to do the construction. So it took two winter windows to complete the bulkhead work, which was the expansion, replacing the bulkhead, and getting the parking lot and so forth back into place. So during that time, the owners looked at the clubhouse, which was also part of the original approval, and said, we'd like to rethink planning some of the space. We don't think we need a full basement, so they hired an architect to rework some of the interior layouts, and they changed the west-facing facade or elevation, which faces the water, by lowering the house a foot and a half, or the clubhouse, I should say. It helps with access to the building for handicap, it's less need for ramps, so on and so forth. So overall, it's a much better plan. Also, during the process of tearing the place up to expand the bulkhead at the base and the bulkhead, they restored what we refer to as the sort of the peninsula, which is the rectangular area. Here, this is an existing rectangular area that was a parking space. It previously was asphalt before they did the work. The asphalt was removed, and the owners actually felt that the gravel was a better surface for them. It's a little cooler, and it's more in keeping with, you know, the aesthetic, basically. So, again, we think that that's a positive. The other thing that occurred, I think that Chris pointed out, is that there's a boardwalk. So this is the area. This is the area of the basin that was expanded, and this blue area is the area that the new bulkhead was put in. And then there's a walkway here in blue that goes around the side of it. So the starting condition was a pretty beat up walkway. It was a pretty rundown marina before they took over. And long story short, the width of the original starting bulkhead walkway was probably, it varied, but it was on the order of like probably 4 to 4.5 feet. The walkway that's constructed now, when they did the bulkhead, it's 6 feet wide. So using round numbers, I would say it's probably 2 feet wider than what was originally shown on the plan. And it was basically something that wasn't really that well thought out at the time when we put the plan together. It does match the conditions that are at the town marina, which are immediately adjacent. It's basically the same kind of vinyl walk. So that was that change. So we knew that we had to come back to the town to get your approval for the updated clubhouse plans. We filed with the architectural review board already. And so I had suggested, getting an up-to-date sort of under construction survey to see where we stood with everything else. The clubhouse has the same footprint and the same gross floor area that was originally approved. It's strictly architectural changes and the lowering of the house itself. And so in doing the construction survey, we said, okay, there's some additional coverage in terms of the boardwalk. So that's one of the things that we want to bring to you. You know, we're trying to be transparent about it. We could deal with it at the end of the job as a CO issue, but we want to bring it to you now so that we don't have headaches at the end. We see this as a fairly straightforward modification. If the intent, you know, what we're focused on is making some modest changes to the clubhouse. Again, same footprint, same GFA. That result in some minor changes to where the paths are. We've adjusted some of the ADA parking space locations so that we think that they work better. We adjusted, removed the asphalt, put in gravel, so on and so forth. So we think that all of those are positive attributes for this project. And we'd like to think that this is a minor modification, not a major rethink of the entire project. We think that's important for us to keep in mind. So time is sort of the essence. Knowing that we had to come back to the town to get an updated approval means that we lose out on this winter's construction season. To get the clubhouse up and operating for spring of 2027, we have to break ground September 15th, which is not that far away. So I can either go through the accounting of everything that I think Chris has summarized, or try to respond to what the issues were that were for discussion. That's usually your time.
I think that we have a pretty good understanding of it. Lou, would you like to lead our discussion? And then if we have any more questions, we'll ask.
Okay, fine.
Thanks, Drew.
Okay, yeah, I'm in agreement. The modifications that are sought by the applicant are minor. It's more of a requirement of procedural correctness and zoning compliance. The items that are required are to correct area calculations with a depiction of wetland boundaries used in the calculations. The entire proposal is within 150 feet of tidal wetlands, so it's going to require a modification from the ZBA. Lowering the floor of the clubhouse is not a big deal in my view. ADA parking has got to be asphalt. The dimensions are required. I'm in favor of the gravel parking rather than asphalt, preferable, in my opinion. But is the layout still gonna allow 76 functional spaces?
For parking? That's correct. There's no change for the parking
Okay,
spaces.
so that stays the same. Oh, what about the stormwater compliance? Is it gonna change that?
There's no changes to the stormwater compliance.
Okay, so that's the same. The lighting has to comply with HPOD required standards. I'm sure you're going to do that. We need specs for the an updated photometric plan on the lighting. Relocated HVAC units need sound ratings. And the boardwalk, I think that's a de minimis change, so I have no problem with that, with the extra width. All in all, I'm in favor of moving ahead with your changes.
Lou, just to be clear, they already had an approved lighting plan. It was just one fixture, was not to code. So they just need to provide a sheet showing a complete fixture. They don't need to do a new lighting plan or anything.
Okay, great.
Even better.
Great.
Anybody else have any comments?
No, I support the application. I completely agree with what Louis said.
Yeah, same.
These are technical
Yeah,
corrections. That's it.
I agree. Shall we move to the questions? Does the planning board agree with the planning department's assessment of additional information that must be provided per town code 255-6-50 necessary elements? Yeah. Does the planning board agree the applicant should detail the difference between the approved and modified width of the boardwalk? Yes. I think that was that one of the ones that's done?
Can I interrupt the questions?
Absolutely.
I don't want to be out of order at all, but I
Go
think.
ahead.
So, simply put, we think that the map that's submitted is complete.
Okay.
And we have submitted, so the issue with the light was a sign light that was approved. The temperature was slightly warmer than it should have been. We have since filed an appropriate cut sheet for the same sign light at the appropriate temperature. And it's just, select the right option, basically. It's not blue light, it's just a slightly different option for the light.
Right.
So that's already been filed. The AC compressor, we've already submitted sound attendant or sound data for that. It's a residential size unit. It's a quiet unit. There aren't any issues with it. That's already in your file. As far as the land areas, lot areas, I should say, that is correct on the plans that are filed. And that will be, as I refer to it, as a CO survey issue. So that'll be verified at the end. That's what's most important. We're sort of in the middle of construction here. So we think, or I think, and obviously the owners think, that we do have complete plans that have been filed, and many of the issues that have been outlined here, we've had the opportunity to discuss with Chris in the planning department. As far as the ADA spaces are concerned, there are dimensions on the details. Perhaps I should have added, the original approval showed them as asphalt. Perhaps I should have added another label to make that more clear. But if the board would consider just making that statement in a resolution of some sort, we would appreciate that. Mostly from a timing point of view. Most of the things that we're asking for here are not entirely pertinent to what we're focused on, which is the clubhouse, and not to be, I don't know what the right word is. Time is important to us because once we get through this process, we have to file for building permit applications, and we're really 9 months away from trying to do the work. And we came to you to be transparent, and we're trying to do the right thing, and hopefully the board will recognize that this is a fairly modest ask, at least from our point of view.
We do. Thank you, Drew, for clarifying. And yes, Chris and the planning board did mention, our planning department did mention that some of the questions had kind of already been answered in the time since this memo was prepared. But just for procedural stuff, we just have to ask and answer the questions. So we have it all kind of like on record. Some of the questions, though, we did strike earlier today. So we struck 4, 6, 7. Chris, were there others that we struck? 4, 6, and 7?
And then 8 was the last
8
one.
was the last one. And then,
But as far as the site plan,
so 9 we can strike right now because it's the lighting one, because you've already submitted that, and 10 with the HVAC stuff, right? So we can
yep,
strike
that
those,
makes sense.
okay.
And then as far as the applicant is talking about treating this site plan as compliant, the submission items that the planning department recommended being required are what Mr. Bennett just mentioned, the dimensions for the ADA spaces. The board can consider waiving that, and then the only other item is existing electrical service lines, but the planning department did recommend having those added to the plans, but that is within the board's purview to waive if they.
Could I just,
I don't even see that question on here
yeah,
about the
so
electrical.
the electrical services are underground, and they are actually shown on the map. You'll see the electrical panels and when they come in. There's electric that goes to the clubhouse, and there's electric that goes to the dock. The electrical lines aren't actually, the underground wires aren't shown, but the electrical panels and so forth are.
So can we, Tina, then maybe just change the questioning on this to say, does the board agree that all of the requirements necessary for a site plan either have been submitted or will be submitted as per Mr. Bennett?
I think so. I think the one thing I'd want to make sure we have the accurate plan on is at least the parking and the ADA changes. I think if the board could agree to the modification pending the planning department's acceptance of the revised plan, just to not hold them up.
I think that's a good.
Does that make,
Yep, all
okay,
right.
so yeah, I think
Very
that.
much appreciated.
Yep.
So how should we word that for Caitlin here?
I wrote it down.
True.
I can help, does the planning board agree that the plan will be adjusted as discussed, approved by the planning department? Something like that. I'll help with the word.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Tina. Thank you, Drew.
well, that's it, all right.
For that one. Thank you, guys.
Have a good night, Drew.
Next up, Tandy lot line modification. Sarah, that is you. Is the applicant here? John? And, oh, me. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, board. Sarah Lewis for the planning department. So the board previously reviewed this application on September 10th, 2025. The planning department feels it's important to share some new information following that meeting. So an application was made to modify lot lines so that 3 lots would become 2 on Hampton Road in Amagansett. These parcels were originally part of a single parcel, which was previously subdivided into 3 separate lots via an approved and filed subdivision map in 2011. The application proposes merging parcels 8.2 and 8.3 into a single lot, resulting in 2 lots. 1 lot comprised of 8.2 and 8.3, with 1 lot remaining as 8.1. One of the existing parcels, 8.1, is improved with a single-family residence and associated accessory structures. Lots 8.2 and 8.3 are wooded and vacant. Lot 8.1 is partially cleared with a mix of ornamentals and naturally occurring vegetation. Lots 8.2 and 8.3 are uncleared and contain mixed deciduous woodland habitat with oaks dominating the canopy. In 2011, 3 lots and 2 reserved areas were created in a minor subdivision with the map of Hampton Woods filed March 16th, 2012 as map number 11848. So at the September 10th, 2025 meeting, comments previously made by the planning board are as follows, just as a recap. So the board agreed that the lot line configuration was acceptable. The majority of the board agreed that 2 separate driveways with separate utility access through the separate driveways was acceptable. The board agreed that a large lot easement is required, and the board agreed that a public hearing would be required. So following the planning board meeting, the planning department investigated the process for moving forward, specifically regarding the driveway being constructed through a town-owned reserved area. According to the 2011 minor subdivision approval, condition of approval number 13 states, no buildings or structures may be placed, installed, erected, or constructed within the areas depicted on the map as reserved area, nor may any clearing, grading, or filling occur within these areas, and the said areas shall be left in their natural state forever. The planning department felt it was important to share the following information with the board. The original 2011 subdivision approval also states the deed to the reserved areas was meant to provide that the land so conveyed is to be restricted to use for park purposes only. However, the deed to the land and the town board resolution do not specify the park purposes only limitation. Thus, there is some ambiguity about the reserved area being held by the town as parkland and triggering parkland alienation legislation. So regardless of the reserved areas being considered open space or parkland, allowing a driveway through and detracting from the reserved areas would change the decision of the previous board. To move forward, a modification would need to be submitted, and the applicant would need to demonstrate a change of circumstance in accordance with planning board policy. The planning board change in subdivision conditions from 3 lots to 2 may be considered such a change. Secondly, if the planning board wanted to move forward with the driveway through the town-owned reserved area, town board approval would be required. If the planning board still agrees that a separate driveway through the reserved area is favorable, the planning board should determine if they wish to send comments to the town board reflecting such along with their reasoning. The town board will need to determine if they agree to the access, and a final determination on whether alienation legislation is necessary will be needed. The planning department defers to the town attorney's office as to steps and details of the process of obtaining town board approval. The planning department sees no practical benefit to the proper design of this subdivision, the immediate area, or the town as a whole by permitting this reserved area to be cleared for a driveway when adequate access for the subdivision has already been established and is constructed. We reiterate our opinion regarding the proposed individual driveways from our initial evaluation. So in conclusion, the planning board should reaffirm whether they are accepting of the proposal to have individual driveways for this sub-waiver, or if any additional information is required at this time. If the planning board is accepting of the requested modification, a modification application should be submitted, and the planning board may also wish to send comments to the town board.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. John?
Thank you. Thorough recap. So since September, these issues have come up about how to move forward. I think that the planning department would like us to go to the town board and ask the town board's permission to go through the reserved area because the deed was to the town board. This seems fine to me. It's hard to argue against that. And the other thing that they wanted us to do, I think they want to know if you want to have comments to the town board, which probably seems appropriate. That's pretty normal. Oh, this open legal question about whether you'll be an alienation of parkland or not, which I guess the town attorney's office will eventually have to just determine one way or the other. So everything that the planning department said, I agree with. I just don't know if I definitely don't agree with the fact that we should be asking the planning board to relitigate the issue that we decided in September. I can't tell you how, I mean, this is in my 25 years of doing this, this has happened a few times and more than I'd like to have experienced, but when the planning department makes a decision on an application, there should be some sort of comfort to the client and the applicant to not have to have that every time a new issue comes up to go back. And I understand the planning department was against this application. They thought that it was better to have 3 lots than 2 driveways. But we shouldn't be here again tonight rehashing that old issue. I think the only questions for the board tonight really should be, do you want to provide comments to the town board? I can't think what the question was, town board and...
Find out about the parkland alienation.
Oh yeah, I think that's a town attorney question. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, John. Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think we should go back too much and re-talk about the same stuff, especially since the majority of the board decided that the 2 driveways was preferable because it would yield 2 lots instead of 3 lots. So I think unless anybody's opinions have changed on that, I think that's probably kind of where we land. And if anybody has
I
anything.
just want to state for the record that you are within your jurisdiction to listen, to hear the new information.
Yes, yeah.
Based on
Okay, thank you.
subdivision review is iterative, so if no final decisions have been made, nothing's binding yet. Just want to put that on record.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear, like, we're not asking you to reconsider because we didn't agree. Like, we want to, mommy said no, and we want to see if daddy
Right.
give it again. We found new information and we wanted to make sure that we share that with the board so they can make an informed decision. And that's really all.
Okay, and that's completely justified. So does anybody have any
I
comments?
just had a comment, and that would be that I think the good outweighs the bad on this one. I really do, and I said that 3 months ago when we reviewed it. There's a high degree of likelihood that if we played hardball here, the applicant, they're going to be like, you know what, fine, if you guys don't want to give us the extra driveway, we're going to put 3 homes there. And I think it's a reduction in density, what's been proposed, and I think it's a nice compromise, so I support it.
Great.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Great.
I agree too, but I just want to make the comment that the new information is pertinent, because what we're talking about now is parkland alienation, which was not on the table when we first reviewed it. So that may or may not change people's opinion about how they voted on this originally. But having said that, I still maintain my same position as I did 3 months ago.
Even if we have to go through parkland alienation.
And the change in circumstances to the town board would be you're going from 3 lots to 2, which is a pretty compelling argument, I think. So,
And ironically, I was the one person who voted for 1 driveway last time, but I do agree that since we already made the decision, I think you're right, 2 lots versus 3 is the way to go. We do have some questions on this. Does the planning board feel that individual driveways are appropriate? Yes. Should the applicant submit a subdivision modification application? Well, that's a kind of a technical question then.
I think I didn't, to answer so when this came to me, I really didn't know what to do. So we submitted for a lot line modification. I think that's probably appropriate to also fill out a
subdivision modification, okay.
Modification.
Okay, so yes, if the applicant is willing.
Yeah.
Does the planning board wish to send comments to the town board?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And our comment would be, we support.
2 is better than 3.
2 is better. 2 driveways, 2 lots. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Okay. The next up is 435 East Lake site plan. Is the applicant here? Yes, okay. And Sarah, this is you as well? Okay. And Lou, it's you for us.
So Sarah Lewis again for the planning department. So a site plan application has been made to construct a pool, equipment and bathhouse, padel playing courts, bar tent facility, and other related accessory structures on a property with an existing restaurant, single-family residence, motel, and recreational marina. The project site consists of a 4.59 acre upland parcel, which is cleared of naturally occurring vegetation, and a separate parcel of underwater lands of Lake Montauk. This parcel is zoned as resort and is within the Harbor Protection Overlay District. The site is currently improved with 14 motel units located within 3 buildings, a single-family residence, a restaurant being built in place in kind due to a fire, accessory structures, bulkheading, and parking areas, including 3 access points along East Lake Drive. It is to the southwest of Montauk Airport and Theodore Roosevelt County Park. The project is preliminarily a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code. which is not subject to additional review. So the site plan indicates that the proposed new structures include 2 padel courts, a pool, pool equipment and bathhouse, an accessory bar, tent, and other small accessory structures on the western side of the restaurant. The narrative submitted provided little to no information on the proposed uses, but it appears that the existing and proposed uses include transient motel, recreational marina, single-family residence, and restaurant. It is recommended that the applicant submit a narrative, including details on how the site will be utilized. Details such as the number of total employees, hours of operation, the intention of use for all of the accessory structures should be included. The applicant should also clarify if the proposed outdoor bar is an accessory to the restaurant, and if so, then the applicant must comply with section 255-550 of the town code. It is also unclear if the proposed new structures are to be used by motel patrons or if these facilities will be open to the public. According to section 255-245 of the town code, typically only 2 uses are permitted on a commercial property unless the uses are legally pre-existing, which appears to be the case in this scenario. However, if additional uses are proposed, then the applicant will need to demonstrate that they meet the requirements for a multiple business complex special permit. So as mentioned, this lot is within HPOD, the Harbor Protection Overlay District. I'll refer to it as HPOD from now on, and fronts Lake Montauk. The purpose of HPOD is to maintain surface water quality, maintain or improve wildlife habitat and waterways, and reduce impact of stormwater, septic systems, swimming pools, and the like. HPOD requirements and the impact to Lake Montauk should be considered throughout this review. The lot falls into different flood zone areas, with portions of the property falling into the AE, VE, and 0.2% annual chance of flood zones, which are associated with a higher risk of flooding. The limit of moderate wave action also appears to fall upon the area of the proposed pool. A portion of the lot also falls within Coastal Erosion Overlay Zone 4. The flood zones, limit of moderate wave action, and Coastal Erosion Overlay Zone should all be indicated on the surveys. As outlined in Town Code Section 255-385, there are specified safeguards for the location and construction of structures in these zones, including all buildings and other structures, except coastal structures, shall be located and constructed so as to minimize the damage to property and risk to human life which may be caused by flooding and erosion. And secondly, all construction and related activities, including the clearing and grading of land, shall be undertaken in a manner which minimizes the damage caused to wetlands, beaches, bluffs, dunes, and vegetation growing thereon by flooding and erosion. It appears that at least one variance for the proposed structures on the western side of the restaurant and a natural resources special permit would be required from the Zoning Board of Appeals, as some of the proposed structures are within the 150-foot setback of Lake Montauk. So the pool right now is proposed to be 100 feet and 11 inches from Lake Montauk, so it doesn't need a variance, just an NRSP. So any setbacks from natural features should be shown on all site plans. And based on a 2021 wetland flagging, there are wetlands on the southeast portion of the site, which cannot be seen on any of the current plans. The plans and surveys should be revised accordingly, and the applicant should discuss how these features will be preserved. These should be properly delineated, and all their setbacks should be measured from the bulkhead or mean high water where applicable. In terms of site layout, the planning department notes that there are several components for the board to consider. The applicant should explain why the proposed site layout is ideal. As it currently stands, the padel courts with an 8-foot chain link fence is 50 feet 2 inches from the roadway, which does meet the 50-foot setback requirement. There is currently no vegetative screening proposed at this time. The fence would need architectural review board as the fence fronts a public street and exceeds 6 feet, as outlined in Town Code Section 255-1138C. The Montauk Airport's runway is also directly across from this development, with aircraft flying in the northeasterly direction to land. While the airport is proposed to be subdivided, there may be height restrictions on the structures across from the runway, and coordination with the Federal Aviation Administration may be necessary. The pool is also located in potentially the most damaging location to Lake Montauk. While it does not appear that the pool would require any variances, as I said, a natural resources special permit would be required. The proposed tented areas fall into higher risk flood zones, which should be considered at this point in review. It also does not appear that the pool equipment and bathroom structure building meets FEMA regulations for that flood zone. There is extensive property history at this location. There's been dredging here since the 1980s. In 2006, the owner submitted a site plan to extend the bulkheading and walkway, construct an awning and gravel patio for the existing restaurant, and legalize an enclosed entrance, walk-in cooler, and enclosure around the hot water heater. The zoning board also granted variances for the awning and patio, and as part of the determination in 2006, the applicant was required to provide a plan for the revegetation of a 25-foot buffer area landward of the bulkhead. Part of the site plan approval also included the following conditions. Seating shall be limited to a total of 75 indoor and outdoor seats for the restaurant, and there should be removal of any light fixtures not depicted on the lighting plan. So again, that was back in 2006. At this time, the applicant has not supplied a revegetation plan for the buffer along the bulkhead. The planning department recommends that this be submitted with a landscaping plan for review. The applicant also proposes seating in excess of 75, which would be in violation of this condition and potentially trigger a sanitary upgrade. The applicant should clarify if this is the intent. In terms of coverage, per section 255-375 of the town code, clearing in commercial districts in HPOD should not exceed 10,000 square feet or 50% of the lot area, whichever is greater. The parcel is predominantly cleared, but it does predate the current HPOD clearing restrictions. But just to note, the clearing should still be indicated on all the surveys. Existing lot coverage is 63,565 square feet. And the proposed is 72,412 square feet, which is well below the allowable coverage. Additional lot coverage is proposed for the concrete pads, tents, padel courts, decks and ramps, HVAC, the generator, pool, pool shed, and pool equipment. So access to the site is provided by 3 entrances, one main entrance for the motel area, one entrance for the restaurant area, and one entrance for the garage and residence. The site is pre-existing non-conforming with regard to parking, with motel use in marina predating 1957 and the restaurant originally constructed in 1959. It should be noted that no additional parking is required if the applicant is not proposing to add or expand a use. If uses are expanded, then the parking and the parking requirements will need to be met. Per the 2006 site plan approval, which I mentioned previously, the restaurant seating shall be limited to a total of 75 indoor and outdoor seats. Based on the site plan provided, the restaurant has a capacity of 111, which is used in the parking calculation. Again, the applicant should clarify if they intend to go above the 75 seating limit, and if just one employee is anticipated for the restaurant, as indicated in the calculations. The applicant is also providing parking for the padel courts, however. It is unclear at this time if the padel courts are an accessory or if they will be used as a new use on the property. The parking calculations will need to be adjusted accordingly. The applicant does identify 2 potential truck loading spaces, which complies. If any of the new improvements trigger additional parking, 88 spaces will be required. So per section 255-560 of the town code, parking areas and driveways shall be sufficiently drained so as to prevent ponding. Whenever feasible, parking areas should also be placed at the rear of buildings. The gravel parking lot should have catchment basements for stormwater. It does not appear that the parking lots are included in the current stormwater calculations. I'll zoom in a little bit for this next part. So the proposed accessory bar is here. As stated in Town Code Section 255-550, there are several special requirements for a bar or tavern as accessory to a resort or transient motel. The applicant should again clarify if the proposed outdoor bar is an accessory to the restaurant and should also include additional information regarding the proposed use, including the number of seats, employees, and hours of operation. The applicant should also indicate if this is intended for use by motel patrons only, or if this bar and other areas of the property are open to the public. Moving on to the pool. So the applicants propose a 1,782 square foot swimming pool to the south of the property, which, as I said, is set back 100 feet, 10 inches from Lake Montauk. No variance would be required as the 100-foot setback is met, but a natural resources special permit would be needed. As per Town Code Section 255-375E, there are also several additional regulations for swimming pools and H-pods, some of which I will mention. One of the requirements is that swimming pools are required to have a system to reduce the use of chlorine, and that's to protect Lake Montauk and other bodies of water. The applicant should clarify which system they intend to use. Another requirement is that the pool meets a minimum of 2 feet above groundwater. The pool appears to meet this requirement, but the applicant should submit a cross-section of the pool showing elevation above groundwater. There are other requirements that the applicant should be aware of, including dry wells, rules regarding draining and cleaning, which are more thoroughly outlined in my memo. Per the engineer review, the proposed site plans are considered preliminary. The drainage design calculations have been provided. However, a complete design and plan view is not provided. Existing and/or proposed sanitary and water supply improvements are not shown on the plans. The applicant should revise the plans to include the existing and/or proposed sanitary and water supply improvements. The applicant should also provide grading and drainage design for the project area. Approval will be needed from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services for the pool house bathroom facilities and for the pool. According to the planning and building department records, the sanitary system that serves the restaurant is pre-existing non-conforming and located approximately 30 feet from Lake Montauk, where a 200-foot setback would normally be required under the current town code standards. The building permit to reconstruct the burnt down restaurant indicates that the existing septic is to remain. However, as I mentioned, the seating is limited to 75 people, including the bar area. So any increase in seating capacity or increase in use would trigger a requirement for an upgrade by both the Suffolk County Department of Health Services and the town. As for fire marshal review, the fire marshal notes that the proposed project is not currently ADA compliant. As I mentioned, if there's no expansion of use, then the parking is sufficient as is. The fire marshal did note a lack of accessible routes from parking to all facilities, and the plans lack accessibility details for the pool and pool area. The fire marshal also made several recommendations regarding parking and accessibility, regardless of if a use is expanded. As for landscaping and lighting plans, the applicant has not yet provided these, and the planning department recommends that a landscaping, revegetation, and lighting plan should be provided for review. So in conclusion, the applicant should clarify the proposed uses and provide justification for the proposed location of accessory structures, which currently do not appear to be in the best locations to minimize impacts to Lake Montauk. The number of pre-existing uses on the property is already over what would otherwise be permitted, and the applicant should provide an explanation of how the site will operate. As indicated in the engineer and fire marshal memos, there are other outstanding items that should be addressed. The site is extremely environmentally sensitive, and any changes to the site will have a direct impact on Lake Montauk. The planning department finds the application incomplete at this time and advises the applicant to submit revised plans. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Would you like to speak? Thanks.
Good evening, members of the board. Brian Matthews, Curtis, Cooley, and Choron here for the applicant. And thank you, Sarah. Very thorough memo. So I appreciate the time. to take here with the board and the planning staff to get everybody's thoughts and reviews on this application. You know, I understand, as we all do, that, you know, zoning applications on waterfront commercial properties in particular can be complex, but all in all, we view this application as being relatively innocuous. And of course, we'll prepare a supplemental submission to address all the comments, questions, concerns that are raised in the memo that come up tonight. And this being the kind of the first time on, or the actual first time on, I don't have a lot to go over, but there are just a few items that I wanted to specifically call out. First being the number of uses, because it was obviously addressed a number of times, and rightfully so in the memo. To be clear, we're not adding any additional uses to the property, adding only accessory structures. The pool and pedal courts are not, in and of themselves, they're not uses under the town code. These are accessory amenity structures on a resort property, accessory to the existing motel. The bar, and I expect we'll have a number of conversations about this. It's not the introduction of an accessory bar or tavern to a transient motel, and it's not the introduction of an accessory restaurant to a resort or transient motel. It is an accessory service area to the existing restaurant within an area that is already approved as part of that restaurant. In 2006, I think it was, there was the tent, awning, canopy area, whatever we want to call it. It's probably called a number of things over the years. Was approved by this board. I think it was 2006. Now the applicant is looking to double the size of that tent area, but the bar structure itself is just like, again, it's just an accessory service area within that existing restaurant. So it's not the introduction of a new use to the property. And again, we'll address this in more detail in our supplemental submission. I'm happy to talk to council about it, but I just wanted to be very clear on that issue. The pool location. I know, you know, the location of structures is obviously within the purview of this board, but the principal impact of that pool or lack thereof, in our view, is going to be vetted in the NRSP application before the zoning board. And we'll get in that in more detail as that process plays itself out. But the comment in the memo that, quote, the pool is in the most damaging location, it's a pretty strong statement. There's not anything else in the memo that really then addresses that statement or substantiates it. I understand it being raised, but I do want to point out three things that I think are critical in addressing that statement. The pool as proposed does not require any variances. It meets the 100-foot NRSP setback. That 100-foot NRSP setback is measured from an existing bulkhead, which again, would mitigate any impacts that the pool would have. And is proposed to meet the HPARD requirements of separation of groundwater and everything else. So all of the necessary elements to make sure that that pool was sited in the least impactful area, but still have it in the area where you'd want to put it, was done prior to the submission. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. The pedal courts. I wanted to note one thing. I don't believe, and again, we'll put this in our submission, that we'll have to go to the ARB. Our office dealt with this issue just very recently with the ARB and the building inspector's office. And there was a determination made that these 8-foot high walls or fences, whatever you want to call them, they're embedded within the definition of a playing court. So they're exempt from ARB review. So I don't believe we're going to have to go there. Again, and we'll put that in our supplemental submission, but nonetheless, vegetation and screening, the applicant's going to want to make this property look nice too, so I don't think there's going to be any objection to that at all. And then just a few other, you know, bullet point items I wanted to address. They're not proposing to do any more seating. The reference to 111, it's in the parking calculations. It looks like they did the parking calculations instead of the 75 seats off of the 111 rated capacity for the building. So it's not a proposal to add new seats. It looks like that's just how they did the parking calculation, rightly or wrongly. So probably the calculation of 38 spaces there is probably more than would be required technically, but that's where that 111 comes from. It's not an increase in seating from 75 to 111. The wetland to the southeast, we can certainly add that on there. to be thorough. It's not going to come into play in this application. Everything that we're proposing here is roughly 400 feet away from that wetland, but we'll certainly put it on there so the map is accurate. I'll double check on the FEMA for the pool house and the pool equipment. I'm sure we'll have to do something with FAA. I don't think it's going to come into an impact here for a pool and an 8-foot high fence, but if we have to submit whatever from them and get a response that this is okay or outside of their jurisdiction, we'll certainly do that. The 2006 re-veg, I don't know anything about it. It's well prior to our client's ownership of the property, but if it's an issue that has to be addressed and we'll look at it a little more thorough, we'll address it, be it whether that appropriate board is here or with the CEBA application that's going to be required, or both, but that'll certainly be addressed. And then the narrative, really, we'll put that in, of course, and expand upon the admittedly very, short narrative that was put in, but I think the expectation is that the operation of the property is going to be exactly the way it is right now. People can come in, you rent the hotel rooms, the rest of the property and its facilities, the marina, the restaurant, and then the pool would be available for use for people staying at the hotel or members of the public. No different than it's been for however many decades the property's been in operation. So that's really what I have right now, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I just have one question regarding the number of uses.
Sure.
So it's a resort.
Yeah.
But it is also a marina. So it's got the hotel, it's got the marina, it's got a single family restaurant and a restaurant that's open to a single family residence,
right.
And a restaurant that's open to the public.
Correct.
So how is that one use?
I don't know that it's admittedly very complex. I don't know that there's many ways to look at it. They're all uses that are legally existing on the property. I don't think, in some ways our town code is very thorough. In some ways it's probably too thorough and they don't all dovetail in the way that they should, because I think the reality is that I don't think it's accurate to say there's a resort and a transient motel. You can either be one or the other, and I think the kitchenette facilities in 9 or 10 of the 14 units takes us out of a transient motel and makes you a resort. But then there's also there's resort as in the town code, and then there's this property is zoned resort, and kind of in a more functional, accurate way of putting it is that the single family residents put that aside. I think the restaurant, the marina, and the hotel are all.
But who can
resort?
In a resort, yeah, I'm sorry. Let me let me finish my train of thought. So it is zoned resort.
Correct.
And I understand that. So we'll take transient motel out of there. So you have a hotel there.
I think that's right. Yeah.
You have a restaurant that is not there to serve the hotel only, but also open to the public. And I think that is a separate use under town code. I'm speaking from other applications that have also been.
I think that whether or not, I think it may or may not be, I shouldn't weigh it, but I think it ultimately is.
You're only allowed 2 uses.
Yeah.
This location is grandfathered to have 4 uses. And the 4 uses are the resort motel, the marina, the restaurant, and the residence. Those are all 4 separate uses that normally would not be allowed, but they're grandfathered in. Now, the question is, are there any more uses over the grandfathered uses? Which would, you would look at the outdoor bar, the event tent, expanded resort amenities. Do they constitute an additional use? I think they do.
And the padel court.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair question. I think the restaurant, that tent awning area is already there and permitted, it's looking to expand the size of that outdoor area as part of the restaurant use. And I think it's a fair question, but I don't think legally and under the code or under New York state law, a pool and a padel court would be deemed uses.
I just have one question.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
Take it away, Lou. Sorry.
Who can use the padel court? Is that for only people who have a hotel room?
I don't think, we'll put that in our narrative and I'll talk more about that with the client, but I think the expectation would be to have the property operate in the same way it has for decades.
But there is no
And that
Padel
is
court
what?
there now.
There's no Padel court, correct, but the
pool,
use
or,
of the restaurant, the use of the marina has never been limited to the hotel guests.
So in my mind,
And
that
access
adds
to the property.
another use.
Michael,
Yeah.
to answer your question, who can use the Padel court? I think the applicant has already answered that, because if you look at their parking calculation, they allocate 4 parking spaces, 2 spaces each for each court. So that assumes that people will come to the resort, park, and use the Padel court. So if you're staying at the hotel, you have your own motel parking space. You don't need another Padel parking space. So that answers your question as to who can use the Padel court, in my eyes.
So just let me ask the question. It's obviously going to be a question we'll have tonight and as we go. Is it the board's preference that no members of the public be able to go on to use these additional amenities on this property?
I think it's a matter of what use is allowed, not necessarily a matter of.
I don't disagree with that. I think it comes down to that fundamental question of, are these uses or are these structures?
That's what I was going to say, that, not to cut you off, but you had originally said that those are considered structures, which I would initially agree with you. However, I believe if those are open to the public, then that opens the door to that being an additional use.
What's the use?
Because it's a recreational use to the public.
No, under the town code then, what would the use be?
It's a tennis club, yeah, or
Okay,
recreational club.
These are all perfectly valid questions. I want to be very clear. And I fully expect them, and we'll go through them as we go along. But that's why I wanted to make clear, like, that this is the applicant's view about how that would be. We'll certainly have all these discussions about ability to use, intent to use, and where they all fit within the existing framework and what they would be classified as we go. And we'll put that, what our view is, and I'm sure you'll speak to council, the building inspector. But that's what our view is, how that would go. These are not additional uses, regardless of who comes onto the property to use them.
I think the
difficult when you're
narrative
dealing
would articulate that much better for us
Absolutely,
to
yeah,
have a
absolutely.
discussion about.
Absolutely.
To answer the question as to if it's for public use or for just the motel guests, there's another issue that comes up, which is traffic on East Lake Drive. I just want to read to you something that I didn't write, but it was publicly available. East Lake Drive is likewise its own ecosystem of businesses, tourist attractions, and more than 175 homes that are accessible only from the single 2-lane road with no shoulder. 5 hotels, 5 marinas, 365 slips, 7 restaurants, 250 seats, 2 county parks, 1 with 80 parking slots for towed campers, a town beach, the 350-member Montauk Lake Club, and New York State's largest commercial fish packing house in terms of total tonnage shipped from its docks, all lying between Route 27 and Montauk Airport. Any additional vehicle traffic could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So when you're intensifying this property with Padel courts. 2 courts.
2 or 4.
I'm not sure. I don't know. 2 courts. Okay, go ahead.
Swimming pool, bar, entertainment tent, I don't know, I'm not sure what that's going to be, but.
It's for outdoor dining that already exists there.
So you're increasing the intensity of use for the public, it seems to me. We'll find out more when you write the narrative.
Traffic are legitimate concerns for every member of this board to raise individually and collectively, and certainly we can address them. The question of whether or not, it's not the introduction of a bar. I want to be, again, some of these terms are inartful and artful at the same time. It is a service bar of an existing restaurant.
Okay, so we talked about the uses. As far as I see, the only variance you're going to need is for the proposed walk-ins that you have.
That's right, as of now, yeah.
You're going to need a full dimensional table all resort standards, front, side, rear yards for each structure, height of new structures, distance between buildings, accessory structure setbacks, and any special resort conditions for resort use. And if we determine that there's multiple uses above the 4 grandfathered uses, you might have to get a multiple business complex special permit as well. Okay, now the other point that I want to bring up is the HPOD designation for this property and the issues that raises. The pool is within 150 feet of Lake Montauk and close to the coastal erosion overlay zone number 4. That may violate the stricter HPOD and flood hazard standards. The pool equipment and bathhouse do not appear to meet FEMA flood zone requirements, suggesting that as sited and elevated, they may not comply with HPOD standards that require construction to be consistent with applicable flood regulations. The reconfigured and additional coverage parking lot drainage proposed may violate HPOD's requirement to prevent runoff into Lake Montauk. Clearing in current layout, new tent, court, decks, pool area does not meet HPOD requirements to restore, preserve vegetation buffers adjacent to the shoreline. Accessory uses near the shore areas, citing the pool, bar, tent, event space, and padel courts in the most water proximate portion of an extremely sensitive site will increase noise, traffic, lighting, and runoff in a way that violates HPOD's siting goal to maintain or improve surface water quality and habitat, even if strict dimensional setbacks are met. So those HPOD standards are very, very crucial to what you're proposing.
They are, certainly.
Okay, now this item, I'm really concerned about, and it's the sanitary system. Before I get to why I think you need an upgraded sanitary system, I just want to read something from a planning department memo from 2012 on this site. And it talked, I won't go through the whole memo, but it talked about the sanitary system and why they thought at that time that they needed to upgrade the system to an IA system. Conventional septic systems are designed to primarily address bacterial removal and decay of organic wastes and have changed little over the past 20 years. Conventional septic systems do little to remove nitrogen, which can be a concern for both drinking supplies and a threat to coastal waters. It has been determined that 50 to 60% of nitrogen, mostly as nitrate, is likely to escape the leaching field and percolate into the groundwater. The sanitary system that you have there is 4 feet above groundwater and 200 feet from Lake Montauk. And since the groundwater flows into Lake Montauk, there is a significant potential for nitrogen and other contaminants reaching the surface waters in a relatively short period. The memo also talks about the sensitivity of Lake Montauk and the pollution and so forth, and the importance of having an upgraded system.
And it's 30 feet from Lake Montauk, the septic system. The setback requirement is 200 feet.
Okay.
So it's even worse. Yeah.
So now getting back to the sanitary system in an HPOD district. And so the code says that an existing sanitary septic system, which legally exists on a residential property since January 1st, 1996, shall be replaced or upgraded in the following circumstances and to the following extent. Every septic system regulated by this subsection shall be replaced or upgraded if A, natural resources special permit is required for work to be performed on the lot or parcel containing the septic system. The new pool and other improvements are within 150 feet of Lake Montauk, which trigger a natural resources special permit. So that one alone would trigger the upgrade. C, the septic system in question does not meet the minimum requirements of the Suffolk County Department of Health Services for septic system capacity. This parcel has a maximum sanitary density load of 2,814 gallons per day. The existing uses, not to mention the increased, more intensive uses, including a 75-seat restaurant, generate 3,120 gallons per day. So you're already over on the existing uses. And the last item I wanted to talk about was the parking, but you covered that question that I had, because your parking calculations come out to 111 seats, and you're only allowed to have 75 restaurant seats. We talked about that. And I also mentioned that if the Padel courts require parking as you suggest, then it's an additional use as far as I'm concerned. That would trigger the multiple complex special permit because you have more than the four grandfathered uses. I think the courts and the bar should be considered as separate public uses, because as far as I know on this site, the bar has always been used as a separate use. The restaurant closes down, and then there's a big bar scene that happens afterwards. And people come just for the bar. So I don't see that as an accessory use to the restaurant. Not if it's
Okay,
used in
we'll
that.
address that in our memo. So it's a belief that I don't think is accurate, but we'll address it, certainly.
Can I ask one quick question? Sorry.
I'll finish, so.
As far as the 75 seats go, that would be, if the bar is an accessory to the restaurant, then the 75 seats would be for the bar and the restaurant.
There are 75 seats permitted if they take with this bar structure.
So what size tent are they requesting?
Right now, the approved tent, I think, is 30 by 30, and I think they're trying to do 60 by 60 to make it match.
Yeah, that's a huge, I mean.
To make it match the.
You can fit 150 people under that tent, let alone in the restaurant.
But with respect to seating, it's understood that if it's any seats for outdoor dining, if they put 20 seats outside, for instance, they come from inside, they're not an addition. That's the way the code works.
So the cap on occupancy on any one night would be 75 people at one time.
The town code does not regulate outdoor capacity.
But the seating is 75.
It just doesn't.
But outdoor seating for a restaurant.
No, there's property capacity, and then there's building capacity, that is the 111, and then there is seating.
But if you're saying that the tent is an accessory bar to the restaurant, then it should conform to the rules of the restaurant.
We're saying it's part of the restaurant.
Right.
It's a secondary service bar.
So there shouldn't be more than
It's not accessory to
75,
anything.
right, but it shouldn't be more than 75.
No more than 75 seats is permitted.
And they can take 30% of the
Yes,
seats.
for
and
outdoor
30%,
seating.
yeah.
Put it in the tent.
Yes.
But then they would have to subtract it from the indoor restaurant.
Yeah.
Right.
So it wouldn't be just a bar outside. You couldn't just
No,
drive in and walk up.
it's not a different, it's not, this
Can you
is
define
Rick's.
service bar? Because I
It's
don't
not as
understand.
Rick's Krabby Cowboy, whatever they're gonna
Yeah.
ultimately call it. And then this is some other separate establishment. Bars have service areas. Bars have multiple service bars. Restaurants have that. This is meant to be part of that, which is why it is part of the whole restaurant complex, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand, because when I think service bar, I think of a place that servers go to like get the
It's a
drinks and pick them
secondary
up.
service area. There's service bar that only does drinks for the tables, but this is a secondary service area within that same restaurant.
Where bar patrons can directly order.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So
That's the intent, and we'll put that in our narrative, and we'll talk that out further. But if I have, this is my restaurant here, I put a bar there, I put a bar there, it's not a separate use. It's different, two bar structures within that same use. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like,
Well, you're only
or if I put one out.
limited to 75
Right, 75 people.
75 seats, yeah, 100%. this is not in any way meant to
To be clear,
circumvent the 75 seats. It doesn't add anything
seats,
at all.
But 75 people.
No, it's 75 seats. It is not 75
So
people.
if
There's a
you
difference
come in,
between the capacity of 111.
There's a max capacity.
It's not a loophole, it's the way the law works.
Yeah, the max capacity, okay.
Right.
Seating.
This is not special to here. This is every bar and restaurant in New York State has a seating capacity that's based on your septic and your parking, and a building capacity that is a fire marshal number.
I wonder how the tent
When you
then,
see max capacity.
There is,
on
the tent as it is right now has a 95-person capacity.
okay, okay.
But if you take seats, that is a fire marshal capacity. That's, and
Okay,
there are ample
thank you.
records to go
That
back and forth. So
answers
that's
a lot
not
of my
unique to here. That
questions.
is,
Okay.
I don't want to overstate it, but I think
Just
it's
wanna say
purely
one more
stating it,
thing.
every bar and restaurant in New York State.
When you go back to your client, could you ask him about the upgrading sanitary?
Yeah.
Of course, it's an expected question. It's a big undertaking for a property like this, for something that, again, I'm not trying to downplay putting a pool 100 feet from Lake Montauk. I mean, there's residences throughout town that have that and closer. But for a pool at a playing court, multi-$100,000 septic system that's a lot. But of course I'll have that conversation with them, and they're very, they want to be able to do what needs to be done, but just.
Can't the town help with that?
Not commercial. I don't think there's no, yeah, okay. Okay. We're going to have our discussion. I think Lou, you're gonna lead us a little bit, or if
Any more
we
questions?
kind of.
I'm happy to
Great.
step up and do the best that I can.
And we can.
Yeah, I personally think, of course, it'll have to be investigated further by the planning department and our attorney. But I think, as I mentioned in my comments, because of the HPOD regulations, it does trigger a upgrade to the septic system. But whether it does or it doesn't, any applicant with this kind of ambitious plan on Lake Montauk of all places, if they don't upgrade their septic system, to me, they're not consciously following, they're not good citizens of Montauk and East Hampton. I mean, almost every establishment, serious establishment like this one proposes to be, has upgraded or will upgrade their septic system. I also think that there are more than 4 grandfathered uses. I think the padel court is an additional use. I'm not sure what you call it. Tina said tennis court type of place, club. I think the bar is a separate use. It's not an accessory use. That's something else that needs to be fished out. So I think the big issues are the septic system, the special permit that they'll have to get because there's more than 4 uses. Those are the 2 big ones in my view.
Yeah, thank you. Reed, any other?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with Lou. I consider myself a very business friendly board member, but I think you nailed it with that one word, ambitious. This is a pretty ambitious plan. Quite frankly, I think you're trying to do too much here, but that's just my assessment.
Yes. So I think adding the pool and the pool house with bathrooms, I think that's increasing your septic capacity as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the septic system is 30 feet from the lake. That's troubling. And what is the current septic system? You know, it can't be great.
Yeah, I mean, it must have to be pumped out. Ava?
I agree with the septic issue. I will be maybe a little more open-minded about the additional uses. I am interested to see what the narrative is, about the pool and the padel courts. I think personally, I will have an open mind about that, just knowing the site. It's been there for a long time. It has had multiple uses for as long as I can remember. So I'm interested to see how that kind of fleshes out.
It's also been, you're right, it's been there a long time, and it has a long history of problems. I didn't read this part in my comments, but.
Go ahead.
There was an annual party billed as Shark Attack Sounds, which drew between 2,000 and 3,000 people. And Eastlake Drive residents said they couldn't get to their houses or out of their driveways because of the traffic.
Yeah.
So that happened at Rick's Krabby Cowboy. That's not the applicant, so I'm not blaming him.
Yes.
I don't want to belabor the point, but for my client's benefit, I think it's important. Our client didn't own that property at that point in time.
It's not.
But the implication is that he had something to do with that, and it goes along with the statement that.
The only reason.
If I can for 1 second, it goes along with the statement that I understand, I take issue with saying that they're not good citizens and they're not genuine people because of the cost and expense it goes to, and they're gonna look into this, but to defend my client, I think that statement's not really fair and it's not really appropriate, and I would just like to say that.
Thank you. I will say, just to be 100% transparent, that since the current owner has owned it, there have also been issues with the, overcrowding occupancy with the fire marshal.
Burned down. It hasn't been open in
This
years.
summer, yeah, well, when it was common ground.
They are not common ground. That is not.
No, I know, but they rented it to common ground as far as.
That is a prior owner.
Okay.
I think it's all very important.
My
I
mistake,
don't want
I
that to color the
apologize.
board's
Yeah.
review of this applicant and what they want to do here. I have no issue with taking issue with saying the pool and this and that. Those are all very fair, and that's what we do.
Okay.
But I think it's important to be accurate about who and what we're talking about.
Thank you. Point well taken. Thank you very much. I agree with kind of everybody else's sentiments. I personally just have, like, the pool right there on Lake Montauk is troubling because we're trying so hard as a town to, protect the environment and that waterway especially. Every waterway in town. So I have a big problem with that. And I do think that an upgraded IA system, if this were any other application, barring the fact that it burned down, if it were any other application, even for this size, which you consider to be a fairly innocuous upgrade, it would trigger the requirements for an upgraded IA system. And I think that is something that should be really, it should be emphasized that it would be a boon to the application.
Absolutely have that discussion with them.
And I think with that, we are ready for questions. Thank you very much for your explanation and your patience, and thank you, Sarah, for the thorough review. Does the planning board agree with the planning department's assessment of additional information that must be provided per town code 255-6? Oh, that's number 2. We'll go back to number 1. Necessary elements. Yeah, I think there's a lot that needs to be. Number 1, does the planning board require additional clarification regarding the proposed uses, including a narrative that addresses the details herein, including whether the accessory structures will be utilized by outside patrons, the hours of operation, number of employees, et cetera? Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I had one more point. You mentioned that the padel courts, so the description in the memo is that the padel courts are going to be surrounded by an 8-foot chain link fence. That is not part of a padel court. As far as I know, it's like a plexiglass wall. So is there an additional fence? That can be part of okay. That should be part of the clarification as well.
I don't want to speak and reveal how little I know about padel.
Yeah. We've had the padel discussion here multiple times. Does the planning board require that the applicants provide revised parking lot calculations? Yes. Yeah, of course. Does the planning board agree that alternatives should be considered for the layout of the proposed structures? Yes. Should comprehensive site drainage information be provided? Yes. Should comprehensive sanitary information be required? Yes. Should a comprehensive lighting plan be submitted? Yes. Should a comprehensive site landscaping and screening plan be submitted? Yes. Should a revegetation plan which provides a buffer for the areas adjacent to the bulkhead as previously required by the ZBA be submitted? Yes. Should additional information pertaining to the swimming pool and how the requirements of the town code will be met be submitted? I think yes. And should the wetland boundary be added to the plans? Yes. And I think can we just add one more question about the IA system? That do we as a board think that should be something to be heavily considered, or?
I would just add to something that Mr. Matthews said triggered if the rated capacity of the bar area is going to be increasing, that would have a septic impact, so that should be quantified. And I think that the fire
by doubling the size of the
if you double the size of that, and it's not a service area where only like servers are going to get drinks and serve, if it's like more people will be able to fit, even if it's not a new use, which I'm not conceding, it's certainly an expansion of an existing use, and increasing the capacity of that has septic and parking. So I would just want to make sure that the revised clearly delineates that. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay. Next, Bayberry Estates preliminary subdivision. That is Eric, but that is Tina. And Dan, are you the applicant? Great. Yeah. And I'm just going to make an aside. Kirby, are you waiting for a specific application? You've been sitting here so patiently.
Waiting to hear what happens with the Wayne Scott Commercial Center.
Okay.
Okay.
Kirby, that's only
it's only a resolution.
It's only a resolution, which is online. There's not a work session discussion, do you think?
You can read it.
I just don't want you to be sitting here for nothing.
Yeah, but there's not a discussion on Wayne Scott Commercial Center. They're just going to adopt the resolution. So you understand, the one that's posted, there's nothing else beyond that.
We're not talking about it tonight.
Rejecting the DEI and stuff.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it. Exactly.
Oh. Thanks very much.
Good to see you.
Yes, thanks, Kirby. Okay, go ahead, Tina.
Okay, I'm covering for Eric this evening. He wasn't able to make it. This is Bayberry Estates preliminary subdivision. This is a wrap-up memo. There was a public hearing on November 5th. And just briefly, I have the subdivision map open. It's an open space preliminary subdivision application. It's subdividing a 17-acre parcel into 3 individual lots, 70% of the parcel being dedicated. Back here, and there's 3 building lots, about a half an acre each, give or take, up or down. The issue that we just wanted to talk with the board about is that at the public hearing, a member of the public provided information that the site had been historically used as a shooting range. The planning department was not aware of that during the review. Shooting ranges can result in lead contamination from the shot on site. The applicant, after that was revealed, provided some historical testing, which wasn't sufficient to allay concerns that there's no lead contamination, and then did go at the planning department request and take additional borings. The planning department did not get to review the testing protocol as we had wanted. It's important when you're doing testing to make sure you get enough representative samples. Unfortunately, with this situation, we don't know where the troubling historical activity occurred, so we can't really pinpoint. Typically, what you would do is pinpoint areas that are more likely to be contaminated. We weren't able to do that here, so the applicant did take borings within the building envelopes on the proposed lots, which does make sense. We do think additional testing should be done just in the area of the common driveway, and at least 2 more on each of the building lots, just to be sure that we've got enough representative information to really clear the site for secra and make sure that no environmental controls are necessary with respect to on-site contamination being transported or remaining when there's, residential uses on the site. I will say that the borings that have been taken already do not show lead contamination at levels that would be troublesome for residential use, right? So here's the results. The highest value was at lot 3, but it's still, below the regulated, the residential threshold regulated set by DEC. So the issue for the board tonight, the application is otherwise complete, right? Obviously, the public hearing already occurred, so the only matter is whether the board would like to see additional testing or if they find what has been already done satisfactory. Now, the last thing I'll say is that because this is a preliminary subdivision, the board could condition the preliminary subdivision on additional testing, right? If they do think, okay, the applicant's done enough for the preliminary, we could say, do the additional testing before the final. That is an option to the board if they want additional testing. We think it's better to do during the preliminary when we're doing the environmental review, but it would be acceptable as long as we get the additional results to proceed either way. Or if the board doesn't think the testing is required, that's obviously your decision.
Technical question about waiting till prior to approval. If the soil contaminated is like cleared, if they clear and dig down for a driveway or dig a foundation or whatever, and then it turns up subsequently to have some contamination.
Well, that's what we're trying to avoid. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
yeah,
you don't want to move it off site to someplace else where it can be.
Exactly. So what we're saying is we'd like to do more borings before they get to construction. And either you could do them as part of the preliminary subdivision review before the final, and either one of those we think would be fine. We just
before they start construction.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's my comments.
Thank you. Dan, you're up.
It's a public hearing. We can keep talking.
Dan is the applicant.
Yeah. Dan Weaver from Walbridge Surveyors on behalf of the applicant. We do feel like we provided enough testing. We sampled on, 2 samples in each of the lots. Everything's come back below the required thresholds for DEC. So that's just the one comment the property owner wanted me to make, was that they do feel like they've done enough testing at this point. So that's ultimately up to you.
Tina, what did you say earlier? I might have missed it, that when the testing was done, it wasn't done with sufficient supervision or adequate supervision?
No, so we didn't review the testing protocol. If we had, we would have suggested more borings at that time, and then they wouldn't have to go back. That's all. I mean, we told them that we felt testing was necessary, and I think in the interest of time, they just went and did the testing without saying where they were going to do it. But
and now that you've seen where they have done it, are you satisfied with?
That's what I think, that additional borings would have been required, just because we don't know where the historic uses were, so we can't say whether or not these are good. So more representative sampling, like the areas of the common driveway that have to be disturbed for drainage and road installation, more areas maybe central to the site that are more likely to be disturbed during construction. We don't know where the homes are going to go on these sites, and we don't have, we could make building envelopes more restrictive, but I mean, rather than that, if we just get another boring or 2 and have greater confidence that there's no contamination, that would be our preference.
Yeah, just to your point, Lou, the protocols are all mandated by the DEC. So the only question is, do we need more locations? Not the process, not the methods.
Right.
None of that needs to be addressed. It's only, do we need more locations of borings? Another point to make, the Suffolk County Health Department, as part of their review of the application, is requiring, and you can see on the corner of the bottom of the map here, I can point it out here, is requiring a test well to be installed, which has been installed, and we're waiting for water sampling to come back on that. So we will have that bit of information as well. We just don't have it back yet, and that would be requirement for the Suffolk County Health Department. We have to pass their quality, the water quality levels, so that will be tested as well.
Wouldn't it be to your advantage to do more test holes now, cover a larger area, so you would prevent any possible problems that Jen mentioned might happen when you start construction?
That's up to your decision. My client feels like they've done enough. That's all I can say on that matter.
So the problem with soil contamination of this nature is it can be there and nobody will know unless we look for it further, right? So they're not going to get, like, the building permit process won't require soil testing. So they could basically, if the soil is contaminated, it could be moved from the site, put somewhere else, and people just won't know, and it won't be handled in accordance with the appropriate state laws is the issue.
How many more borings would satisfy you?
Yeah, I mean, we said 2 more for the common driveway and 2 more per building lot.
2 more per building lot? What about 1 more
I think
per
so.
building lot? Right in the
Maybe
middle.
1 to, I don't.
I mean, lot 1's pretty minimal, lot 2's pretty minimal, lot 3 is quite a bit higher.
Right. That was our other concern, right? Of
Yeah.
getting kind of closer.
I mean,
How big are
it's,
these lots?
They're a bit like 1.4 acres, 1.6 acres. They're all like around there.
I guess from the, amount of lead in the soil, it would seem that they shot towards lot 3.
Yeah, I just don't know,
So I tried to address that. Unfortunately, there's no historical aerial that show this properly. It would make sense to me from what was cleared that from towards the back of lot 3 towards the reserve area is where the shots would have happened.
Yeah.
Based on what little aerial evidence I could find. I tried to research this.
Yeah.
So, and that was part of why originally, when Eastern Environmental did their original assessment, which I think was 2020 or 2021, they assumed the same thing, and that's why they didn't do any samples in the front. Then when the planning department said they wanted more samples because those samples were mostly behind these lots. So then when the planning department said they would like more samples on the lots, again, like as Tina brought up, in the interest of trying to move this along as quickly as possible, my client said, I don't want to wait, go just do more samples. So that's why Eastern did 2 on each of the existing or proposed lots. But they also feel the same thing. The shooting would have happened towards the rear, away from the street. You wouldn't have been firing shotgun shells.
Right.
I mean, I know the street wasn't very busy back then, but still wouldn't have been firing shots towards the street. You would have been firing away from the street. Both of the adjoining subdivisions that exist now didn't exist then. There was no houses in that direction. So all of the shots would have been fired towards the rear of the property. And that's why they concentrated their borings originally on the rear portion of the property.
Where does the homeowner who says he's been poisoned by lead, where does he live?
I'm not sure which lot it is.
Yeah. That's in the,
So
I think it's in one
the
of them.
public comment letter is in
Here it is.
record.
10 Ridge Road. Yeah. It's, which is off of
North and west.
Northwest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cul-de-sac.
North and east of these lots, yeah.
Would there be a compromise acceptable, Tina, to the planning department? Like, what if we required or we asked for 2 holes on the driveway and then 1 additional hole on each lot in the center where the building envelope is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be better, yes. I could go with one more for that, I suppose, somewhere centrally located.
Yeah.
And where they're most likely to construct.
And that in conjunction with the test well might.
Yeah, I mean,
sufficient.
the Suffolk County, we are relying, we're not asking for any groundwater testing because we know that Suffolk County is going to, and for, they're doing a test well, and then for each individual well, they'll also have to go through testing. So we feel that they have that covered, but that if we don't test the soils, nobody else will.
Of course, yeah.
What does it cost to do these?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that either.
I know it's more expensive going back out than it would have been if we could just.
Obviously we don't want to put an undue burden on the applicant, but I do feel like if I were moving in there too, I'd want to know. And a couple more holes would make me feel better. What does everyone else think?
Put it that way, Jeff.
I mean, let me characterize it like this, the board, as part of its secret obligations, needs to certify that there's going to be no significant adverse environmental impacts, right, to public health. So if we can't know something like that for sure, I think we need to err on the side of conservatism. We thought about this too. I don't want to have an undue burden. I don't want to be unfair, but again, residential uses, sensitive land use.
And especially if it's well water.
Well, and then there's just on-site soils that are contaminated with high levels of lead.
You had kids.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I agree with Tina. I don't think it's a big ask to do some additional testing. We have a homeowner who absolutely says he's been poisoned by lead from the property, from lead contamination.
I think that should be addressed. I don't think that's a fair assumption. Just because somebody has elevated levels of lead in their blood, there's multiple ways that could have happened. To make the statement that that's got to do with where he lives adjacent to this property, I think you got to be careful about making that statement.
Well, I agree. I think you need to be careful. I think you got to be careful.
The other thing I do want to address with that, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to say that the issue is not an issue that should be discussed. But he also mentions in his memo that the report is AI generated. And I don't know, you can be very, very careful when you're analyzing an AI generated report. For instance, I had a client who said to me, I want to put a planning court on my property. Said, you don't have enough building coverage for it, or total lot coverage for it. Said, how much total lot coverage do I have? And I gave him the numbers. He said, what about a half court? And I said, well, no, a half court's still too much. And I told him the size of a half court. He goes, well, that's not a half court. I asked AI what a half court is. And AI took the dimensions of a court and cut each of them in half, which is a quarter of a court. So, I just think we need to be cautious of some of the statements that are made in that report and where they come from and how they were generated. Eastern Environmental did a proper assessment of the soils and is not finding elevated levels of contamination. And I think that's more important than an AI generator.
I agree. And I didn't, to be honest, didn't read the whole report.
Yeah, I didn't, and to be honest, I didn't really rely on the AI report at all. I am professionally aware that lead contamination is a potential in situations like this. So I didn't need the AI report to tell me that. Dan's 100% right. Like, a big grain of salt or two.
I think it's a decision that we make now is going to have ramifications, possible ramifications for a long time to come. So I think it's important that we make the right decision now. And maybe we should err on the side of safety.
Yeah.
Because if we screw up, it's going to create a situation that you can't unwind.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if new borings are requested from this board, where they're going to go, how many, because, and I'm the minority here where I think this is sufficient. The 267 is the highest, but 400, right, is the
minimum.
Yeah. Right.
So it's still lower than the. So I'm just like, that's why I asked, how many more borings is gonna satisfy this board?
I mean, I suggested 1 in the middle of each lot and 2 in the common driveway, because a lot of dirt gets displaced when you're doing a driveway. And, if there is contamination somewhere in there, you need to know before you displace it.
Well, my concern is, because of some other projects we have, removing all that soil that might be contaminated, that would go where? It would be filled in another site somewhere.
Well, that's why we would do the testing.
That's my concern.
Well, that's why the testing, so that the contractors would know to safely dispose of the potentially contaminated soil.
But the test borings aren't deep, they're only like a foot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? And,
Yeah, it's just
and still
surface.
Suffolk County Water doesn't have any water mains up there yet?
No.
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 We went through this a couple months ago with the application. It's still too far away. They did not come this far up when they did the airport remediation work, so we're beyond the
They got
distance.
don't they have fire hydrants up there?
They just put it
installed
in on
those, right?
114, so it should.
Yeah, but they don't come up, they don't
They
come
don't
this
come
far
that
up Wayne
way.
Scott Northwest Road. They went around up 114, so they don't run past this property, so they're not in front of us. So
Okay.
we would have hooked up to public water. if they-
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
All right.
We're required to.
Bruce, any comments?
I just have a question. Dan, are is it a common driveway or?
Correct. It's a common driveway. There's an access easement over the flag for the common driveway. It's up to the top of the sheet. I think there's a detail.
Oh, got it. Yeah, all right, I see it now. Yeah, okay, thank you.
This does look confusing, and we
Yeah,
have.
so I'm
there's
looking,
a lot
it
of-
looks like three,
It looks like
three
three different,
flags.
yeah.
but
Yeah, it
I didn't
does.
see the common driveway.
Yeah, there's
Sorry.
a scenic easement over one of the flags. You can't use it. It's blocked.
So the 267 is in the southeast
Yeah.
corner there, okay.
Yeah, so,
And that is where Dan presumes where the
Most likely.
the most likely the number of shots are, okay.
Any other? So are we generally agreed that more testing is better, aside from Michael?
I think additional testing is warranted.
Yeah.
And I think I would follow the advice of the planning department. That's just me.
Okay. Bruce?
I think maybe one in the middle of lot 3 and one at the end of the common driveway towards lot 3. Lot 1, it seems like it's pretty minimal. The same with lot 2, the higher elevations are on lot 3.
I think that's an educated appraisal.
Yeah.
So I'll sign on to Bruce's suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. I think the logic is clearly that your readings are probably going to be in alignment with what is here for Lot 3, but I do think the driveway needs to have a test hole.
Yeah. So then one additional test hole at the end of the driveway by lot 3. And then one additional test hole in the middle of lot 3.
split the baby.
Split the baby, yeah. Okay. But I think we can answer our questions with kind of these details. Have the public's concerns been adequately addressed, or does the board feel that additional soil and/or groundwater testing as recommended by the planning department and as detailed above is required? Yes. No, the public's concerns have not been adequately addressed, and we do feel that there is additional soil testing necessary, as we just outlined.
And pending groundwater.
As recommended by Bruce.
As Bruce is good. Okay, so this is if no attention, so number 2 was an if no, okay. And then I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay. So now we move on to the regular meeting, which, during which we just have a couple of resolutions. So Michael, would you like to read the Wayne Scott Commercial Center?
In the matter of the application of the Wayne Scott Commercial Center preliminary subdivision, Suffolk Tax Map 300-192-2-6.2 to 6.7, the non-acceptance of preliminary supplemental draft environmental impact statement. I have read the resolution and I move for its adoption.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I am recused from this one, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes, 1 abstention. Recusal. Thank you. Second one, Echo Acres waiver resolution of approval in the matter of Planning Board, Town of East Hampton, in the matter of the application of Echo Acres minor subdivision, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-135-2-11.2, waiver of subdivision approval. I have read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Elite Towers, Reed?
Yeah, I got that. A public hearing is hereby scheduled to be held at Town Hall, 159 Pantego Road, East Hampton, on January 14th, 2026, at 6:30 PM or as soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of Elite Towers at Springs Fire Department Tier 3 Personal Wireless Service Facility at premises identified on the Suffolk County Tax Map as parcel 300-62-2-18.2. Files can be viewed and comments can be filed in accordance with the specifics in the public notice, which appears as part of the meeting record tonight and will be published in the paper of record no less than 10 days before said hearing date. I've read the resolution. I move for its adoption.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You sounded like you had a southern accent there for a second.
A southern accent there?
Yeah, that's what I thought was gonna come out.
Maybe.
It's getting late here.
Yeah.
He's rolling. In the matter of the application of the White House Site Plan Special Permit, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-171-2-3, for an extension of time until July 23rd, 2026. I have read this resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Oh, this one's me too, yikes. In the matter of the application of Scagnelli minor subdivision modification, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-19-1-17, 18, and 22, for an extension of time until July 11th, 2026. I have read this resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, Board of Review, full file map road assignment. Hang on. Okay, this is for a road assignment at 166 Greenwich Street in Montauk. Filed map number 1017, block 159, lot 3, URP number 5 in MN-5, and Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-19-3-35. A revised report has been made on November 21st, which is attached and made a part of this resolution. The road improvement, I can't read because I don't have my glasses.
16,500.
Thank you. It's 3,300 road improvement units for a total of $16,500. I have read this resolution and move for its approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes. Has everyone read them?
I looked at it.
I know that Katie found an error, I know, so I think we can be,
That was a good error.
that was a good error, I know.
Kudos to you.
I move to adopt the minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And there is one last resolution, as Ed would say.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.